I'm going to begin attaching my elastic to the neckline, but I just want to double check and make sure that my wrong sides are together. Otherwise, you will not be happy with the result and you'll have to cut off your elastic. So I've got everything pinned together, and I'm going to start on the lining side of this. So let me hit the on. And what I do is I'm going to get my elastic in and sew part of my elastic. Once my elastic's in there, and this is easy, that makes it a little bit easier to control both, since you're not trying to put the elastic on this at the same time. You've got the elastic in the machine. This can also work if you're working at a home machine with a zigzag. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this kind of right up to the edge. I'm not going to cut off much because we're going to be rolling it. So even though it's 3/8 of an inch seam allowance and this is only 1/4 of an inch, we're going to end up gaining or losing that 1/8 of an inch in that roll. So it's going to be about like a 1/16 on each side. So we don't really need to cut any off unless they don't line up. Okay, so I'm getting this started. And you're going to want to give your elastic a little bit of a tug. Just kind of like this. Not this much. That'll be way too tight on you. And if you don't, it'll end up giving, when you sew your second stitch, you'll end up rippling the fabric. So it'll kind of have like this wave look to it. So you want to give it a little pull. Definitely practice on the scraps that you have left over with a little bit of your elastic to see how much when you do this stitch, fold it over, and then do your zigzag. So I'm only slightly pulling it. Making sure that is in there to cut off. Don't sew over your pins. So I'm taking it really slow around these curves because you don't want to accidentally lose control. You're going to let the elastic run off. Okay.
Why did you do that?
Because it was in my hands. It was close. And then I'm going to get my elastic started again.
Yes. There's a little bit on there.
I know. And then I'm going to get this started again. Get that pin out of there. So once you've done this a few times, you'll figure out exactly where you need to stretch it more. Sometimes kind of around the back area and then the front neckline you want to stretch more, maybe less right at the neck and at the strap, or at the side seam and at the strap. Okay, and we're here, I've got this little uneven bit. We'll just even it out with this machine. Okay. Okay, get my elastic ready again. And now the last little bit. Okay, so your neckline should be all ready. You just want to double check and make sure that everything is caught in the elastic. Like here, I got a little bit short, but I think it'll be fine because as I roll it, it'll be hidden in there. And that. So here I got a little bit short again, but because it is going to be rolling over, it should be okay. Okay, and we'll be ready to go to the straight or zigzag machine next. Okay, before we can actually sew this over to finish up our elastic edge, we actually need to attach the straps for this one. And that way we make sure that when we're actually sewing the finished part, we have a clean transition from this side to that side. So the straps have an angle on them. They're like this. So if you're not exactly sure which way to put them, just kind of line them up to the edge. This, lined up this way, is going to throw the strap way over towards your armhole. So if you look at it this way, this is going to throw it back towards a racer back, which is what we're doing. So you just want to double check, and it looks like I have a stain on that one, so I'm going to switch straps. That one's going to be over there. So we're going to have this one here, and my fabric stretched a tiny bit. Can you grab my scissors, honey? One's over there. So I know my elastic is the exact measurement, so I'm going to be sewing it, lining it, the elastic up to here. Okay, so I'm just going to trim this so they're actually at the same point. And then I'm just going to stick 2 pins in there. I don't want things to move on me. All right, so I'm going to line these up in between the elastic the best I can. And I'm going to go ahead and do both of them so I don't accidentally sew one in one direction and one in the other direction. That elastic's right to the edge, so I can just keep it there. And then my seam allowance on everything on this bra is 3/8 of an inch. So I'm going to start, and I'm just going to sew this down at 3/8 of an inch. This foot on this machine is actually 3/8 of an inch wide, so it makes for a nice easy guide. I have a little marker spot on here that tells me where 1/4 inch is. So this is what you get from coloring with your daughter. So I'm doing my back stitch. Other side attached. We'll also need to attach the back. So I do one at a time, that way I don't accidentally mix up my steps. Okay, and on the back, we know that this one is coming. Let me just lay this out. That these are going to come in at this angle. So what we'll do is we'll just flip it this way. And this one we have a little bit more room to play with. So I'm going to pin both in place. And the idea when I designed this is that they'll basically butt up next to each other. So we have that coming at this angle. I flip it over. Emily, not necessary. My daughter is wanting to be involved. She can still, you can say hi. You can say hi.
Hi.
Okay, we're going to do 3/8 of an inch here and here. So I'm just going to basically pivot right here and then go across. And if for some reason your straps don't meet right at the center, you could actually take like a piece of twill tape or a piece of elastic and stitch it right on top, and that'll just help stabilize it to keep this part from stretching out of shape. Okay, pivot right there. Okay, now we're going to begin to sew our zigzag. And I think my fabric stretched a little bit when I sewed it, Because normally you should have a little bit of space right here, but I can still work around it. Okay, so I'm going to adjust and have my zigzag here and make my stitch a little bit wider. Get all my pins out of the way. And so here's a good example of what you should have. You should have a little bit of space here. And we're going to basically roll this. So I'm going to pull this. I'm going to roll it over the edge. Do a little back stitch. And then I'm going to take and just roll my fabric over my elastic. A little bit at a time, keeping it tight, and I can give my fabric a little bit of a tug. Actually, make my stitch a little bit smaller. And then you're just going to zigzag all around. Now, sometimes when you're working with your straight machine, you may have some issues with your needles. You want to make sure that you have a ballpoint needle that's a fairly big size, because we're going through 4 layers of fabric and the elastic. So let me clip this a little bit. Don't need all that elastic hanging there. Did I just cut my elastic? No, okay, my thread. So right here, what I'm doing is I'm going to try and fold it over that strap to give a nice clean transition from the strap to the body and vice versa. You can use a contrasting thread like I'm doing, or you can get a matching thread. It's really up to you. So here, because I don't have as much room to play with, I just have to kind of force it a little bit. Once I get that needle in, I started talking about the needle size. So you probably want to have like a size 14 or 16 ballpoint when you're working with this many layers. And sometimes if you're working on a spandex, you could have even more issues. So before you sew the whole thing, if you're having skip stitches, you do want to experiment with a sample so you're not sewing the whole thing and then having to rip it all out. And this fabric's a little bit thicker. But I wanted to do this in black thread so you could actually see it all. Now we could go in here and we can also do a little top stitch in here. I'll do that when I'm done because I'll probably do it with a straight stitch. And back here at the strap point. So right here, back here, just so it makes it a little bit nicer so it's not going to be flipping back and forth, I'm just going to do a top stitch right here with a straight. So I'm going to adjust that. Yes, honey? Okay, we'll color in just a few minutes, okay? I'm almost done.
Now you have to wait.
I know. I'll be done in a moment, okay?
Okay, did I do that one already?
I can't see, honey. I'm working here.
Yeah,
Okay, and you don't necessarily need to do a back stitch here. You can. It's really just for visual effects here. Just to hold that strap down in place. Yeah. So there's the back if you wanted to do that. You could also do it here, but the way we attached the elastic, we kind of forced it down. And there we go. The last step we will be having to do we'll be attaching the waistband.